Hello, everyone. This is Vaughn Barker with another episode of Beyond Boardrooms. And today I have a healthcare executive that I used to work with. We worked on a large project, significantly large project together. Um, and now he's in town for another meeting. And so this is a special edition of Beyond Boardrooms. And so I'd like to welcome Emmanuel.
Thank you.
Nice. Well, Emmanuel, one thing I mentioned was how we work together inside the healthcare. Could you tell us where you're at now in your life, and how did you actually get to this point?
So career-wise,
Yes.
I think I'm at the bottom of the Mount Kilimanjaro, still going up to the peak, right? From a career perspective, and that's the idea of me continuing to climb up and just grow. But career-wise, I'm in healthcare, a ever-evolving industry, and my role is to make sure that we connect patients and our clinical teams from a language standpoint, and really make sure that that conversation is heard well and loud, and that the reciprocating action is that the patient's care can be administered very well. So my teams, great and bold, spend hours and hours, in managing that conversation between patients and providers.
All right, nice, man. So, have you always been in healthcare?
No, actually, I'll say I started my career in retail,
Okay.
and funny enough, one day sold country radio
Okay.
airtime, and so that got me the diversity I needed of from a sales standpoint of you can get out there and get wild with your thoughts and still make it. And then did some work with a consulting company that led me into healthcare.
Okay.
And the healthcare path that the way I got into hospital healthcare is through the insurance side. So managed a group that did insurance, and through that work and the efforts that we saw, the fruits that we saw, we were able to extend that over to the hospital side and build up on that. So
Nice.
that's how I ended up in healthcare. Healthcare is very, very complex in its own self, but I feel like I have been able to touch any of the administrative sides with the exception of the clinical side of it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Nice. Nice. And so we're in the Midwest now, the more Illinois and Wisconsin area. Did you grow up here, or where did you come from?
No. Actually, I grew up in the land of the runners,
Okay.
Kenya. So I say this as a funny thing, but my tribe is actually runners. We're all runners, with the exception of me, of course. But
Stop.
but I grew up in Kenya. Spent my childhood there with the understanding that I knew at a certain point I'll have to face the world, and the opportunity came up for me to leave and come up and start my life, and join the rest of my family that was out in the U.S.
Nice. So when you came to the U.S., what are, say, 2 to 3 challenges that you faced? Or was it smooth sailing throughout?
No, I think the first thing is just the culture shock. I mean, and I'd come over a couple of times, so understanding the culture was somewhat, at least I was lukewarm to it, but there's a serious culture shock as you come as an adult. The one thing we all think coming into America is that money grows on trees. And once you start making money, you realize that Uncle Sam also owns some of that money. And so that was a culture shock on its own. Language. I speak English. Came here, we all speak English, but it's a whole different dialect in its own self. And so that was a challenge in just understanding the culture, the language, and embracing it. But, within 2 to 3 years, you adapt and you stick into it, and, you end up being an American so-called, if you want to say it, with the exception of your accent. So
Right.
my accent has stayed with me and will always be with me, yeah.
Right, right. You mentioned the language challenges that you have, and now you are, a leader over language services. So it seems like you will have some kind of understanding or appreciation of the things that they may go through. But inside language services, just one question about this. And so inside language services, Do you feel that people, as you did, became accustomed to English within a few years, or do you think some people have a harder time?
So I think there are two things that play into it. It's how quick a person can get through the learning curve of a language. Age also plays into it, and there's also some cultural I'd call stubbornness, where someone decides I don't want to adapt to
Right.
the culture. But for the most part, we're surrounded with so much information, whether it's through TV, radio, in front of us on our phones, that is in English. And so you quickly have to adapt to the language, or otherwise you'll find yourself lost. And you find most Americans come in and, within a year or two have learned enough English to be able to have a conversation. And so I think that's just one thing you adapt. And even I, who came from Kenya, knowing English, had to adapt to American English.
Right.
Routes instead of roots, trunk instead of boot.
Right.
Those are the things that you still have to adapt to. But within a year or two, it's important that you quickly understand it. Otherwise, you'll get lost.
Okay. You mentioned adaptability. Well, I'm gonna switch it over to technology. So inside healthcare, there's a lot of changes in technology. Inside the world in general, there's a lot of changes with AI.
Yeah.
What do you think about the pace of change as it relates to AI?
So I think as a society, we were relaxed and didn't expect this to happen for another 50 years. So I'm impressed with how far we've been able to get in the last 2 years, just from a technology standpoint. And there were a lot of building points that actually allowed us to get to where we are right now, right? I feel that the world's not ready for what is coming up in the next 2 to 3 years. And even in just my industry itself, I think we stay blind or naive to what AI and technology in its own self, so software and hardware, will be able to do to transform my industry and make it easy for us to be able to have a conversation. Give an example. I should be speaking in Swahili right now, and you're speaking in English, and we can have a natural conversation through the aid of software and hardware combined together.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. That's very nice. I most recently I attended some AI training, and I was sharing with him earlier that things are way further ahead than I thought they were. And even for myself, I was like, I have to catch up. I know a lot of people are talking about Chat GPT and writing prompts and prompt engineers, but based on what I saw a couple of days ago, there's a lot more that's already in play. And to that point, um, how often do you think people should be using AI, or whether it's Chat GPT or something else? Or do you think that, since you're saying that they're not ready, or do you think that maybe they should just wait and then catch up? What are your
I
thoughts?
think there are two groups. Actually, there are three groups. There's a group that's already far ahead in AI, and while we talk about it as a new thing, they've lived it and breathed it and know what it can do. That group is already ahead. For the rest of us, there are two groups that are left. The ones who are actually very interested in understanding this new technology and understanding how this new technology will change their lives and their careers. And then there's a group that's naive or just not interested. And I always take that group to be a group, like if you look back in the day, that did not want to get a smartphone because they just wanted to pick up their phone, dial, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But those two groups are going to grow up in a totally different world, and the gap in knowledge, the gap in technical skill is just going to widen over the next few years. So you ask, how often should you use AI or any application within AI, with AI? I would say you will need to use it as much as you use your phone. So think about what you use your phone for to text people. AI is going to make that easy for us, right? And if you think about some of the things that Apple's doing or some companies are doing from a hardware standpoint, they're really getting it to a point where, um, you know, your body would be able to speak for you without you having to do anything, and that translates into the tool as a response, or the ability for you to be able to respond to your whole team to say, hey, let's get our matrix together and insert your metrics without you having to touch it, telling a story better, being able to uh, convert information to meet different communication styles, but yet having one input. Taking pictures. So the ability for you to be able to take a picture of the moon that is influenced by AI that comes out so clear, and you can show off to your friends and say, wow, I took this picture, but it's aided by AI. So I think we will have to use it every day. And if it's going to take a while to get there, but I almost feel like we're very close to that. If, even just looking at the new release of the new iPhone, they're building it around AI as a platform. So yeah, we will use AI daily.
All right, nice. Nice. So, what are on the more personal side? What are some things that you're into? So, inside this, you could just talk about any of your likes or anything that you would like to share with people that you find. Of course, you find it interesting if you do it, but
I think life in general is interesting. I'm an avid boater, so I enjoy being in the water. Talking about AI, they actually have boats now that can drive themselves, just like a Tesla.
oh wow,
So, what does a captain look like? A captain's future look like in the future? It's another thing to talk about. So, I love boating. I have a business that makes lights out of wood. I feel like that's one that might not be replaced because of the woodwork
right,
price. But I do it as a passion, just because I like wood, and creating things with wood is a passion of mine. And something I invest a lot of time in. I enjoy traveling overall, and just enjoying what life has in front of us, without having to look too far. There's so much that we forget around us,
right.
that if we take advantage of, we become happier.
And so I know we can't say the c word, the bad c word, but you say you like travels. Now that travel restrictions are over, and in my experience, it seems like the world, has fully moved on. Um, what types of places do you like to travel to? Are you more of the I like more relaxing vacations, more exciting vacations, or what is it that
No,
you?
I love vacations that are full of adventure.
Okay.
You will not find me sitting on a beach just relaxing. You will find me trying to figure out something, connecting with cultures, locals, doing something that I've never done before, pushing my limits. Because I think that's an important thing that we have to do every day. We have to figure out ways to push our limits, be it even just driving to work, find a different route that will challenge your thought, and I ultimately inspire you to do something new or different. But I love trying different things. Scuba diving is something I'm also passionate about. So, as you can see, a theme
Right.
around water.
Right, right,
Yeah,
right. The boating.
yeah.
So let's talk about your the boating part of it. And you were saying, AI may change the captain part of it and stuff. In your view, what is the boating scene like around here? What do you like about it? What would you change about it?
So we are very fortunate and unfortunate that we have a 6 month period for boating, right? I boat in Lake Michigan, and I have a very good background, which is the Chicago skyline. I love the ability to be able to get out there and just tour. I mean, and about a month ago, I crossed from Chicago all the way to Michigan,
Okay. Wow. Okay.
to New Buffalo and back, and we did it with a couple of friends on different boats. But the ability to actually just explore our lake, when you're at points where the floor, the bottom of the lake is 300, 400, even 700 feet down. That's an exploration of its
Yes.
own. And
So in a situation like that, would you stop and dive? So you
yeah,
had to put.
yeah. If I brought my equipment, I should have actually gone down and dove a little. And but we swam. Stopped the boat, swim a little, just enjoy, have somebody on the boat, so it doesn't get away from
Right.
you. But the idea for it and why I did this is my second time doing it. The first time I did about 700 miles around Lake Michigan. The This time was actually to do it with one of my dock mates who wanted to take his boat out, and I went with mine as and actually a couple other boats just to get people comfortable with how do you cross a lake. And
A lake of this size.
yeah, and Lake Michigan is probably one of the best training tools or training grounds for sailors, anyone who's sailing around the world, because it changes in a second.
So is it about 300 miles across, or?
No, so actually the path we actually did was about, I want to say about 50 miles.
Okay.
But it depends on what
Yeah, you
stretch.
see, I didn't know.
Yeah, what stretch you want. So if you aim straight to Mackinac, you're going to be doing quite a substantial number of miles as opposed to a direct
Okay.
direct piece within the. If you see
And
how
you're at
Lake
the
Michigan
bottom.
is the bottom of Lake Michigan. Or you could actually like in a few weeks I'm going to be coming up from Chicago all the way to Kenosha. That's about a 2 hour ride, but you can do your exploration. You can do Milwaukee. The lake is for us to explore.
All right. Right. Have you ever? So you're saying you could do Milwaukee, so you haven't come up to Milwaukee yet with the boat?
No, farthest I've come is Racine, and
Okay.
and half of it is because I just want to get back to Chicago and have fun.
Okay.
I've explored most of the southern part of the lake and the Michigan side. I'd really like to do Milwaukee and above, go all the way up to Green Bay up and see how that it goes.
Okay. I know in the summer times, the Summerfest that happens inside Milwaukee, that's a big time for boating and activities. So maybe you could put that in your calendar, maybe a couple of years from now or something.
Let me just tell AI, can you put that in my calendar? No, but yeah, that's true. So Milwaukee, I would love to do the Summerfest in Milwaukee. You guys have the perfect harbors for us to be able to dock in and do that. And I know a ton of people who come out here to just enjoy that as part of boating. It takes me a shorter period.
I would join you.
Yeah, you would. But it takes me a shorter period of time actually to come out here by boat, but as opposed to driving.
Right.
It's a direct shot.
Right. So you're up here for business. How often do you travel for business?
I want to say, once or twice a quarter. Really depends. In the virtual world, a lot can be done, remotely. And so the points when we travel, or when I get the team together, is really to be able to, one, just build culture. It's most important to spend time just building culture, touching, and connecting, at a human level. And then it's a point for you to be able to also just assess what your business in that area looks like, and be able to make connections from that standpoint. But so the travel is, as much as it's limited compared to prior to virtual worlds, most of my time is spent connecting with people.
So so with remote, so after the pandemic, I feel the pandemic really ushered in the acceptance of Zoom or video meetings, whether it's Zoom, Teams. There's a lot of different platforms out here. So I feel it ushered in or fast forwarded people adoption of it. And so, like you said, you don't have to travel as much. So therefore, there's the travel savings from it. But how do you feel it affects team dynamics? The fact that you're video meeting more.
So I'm glad that the pandemic came in when it did, because it forced us to quickly innovate and figure out ways to connect us teams without any pre-scheduling. It put us in I think the best creations are actually made in chaotic scenarios where nothing was planned, and you get together as a team and you're able to formulate what to do. I think there's a cultural piece where just the face to face is lost, but I have a very good feeling that there are pieces in technology that will change that. So I'm not sure if you've done any VR meetings on Teams where your avatar is actually your presence, and I can come in and greet you and feel the handshake virtually. And think we're getting close to the Jetsons very quickly.
Yes.
From an engagement standpoint, the workforce wants to work from home. And so businesses are really struggling with this conversation right now around you have commercial interests and you have employees who want to work from home. How do you balance those two together? And the large part around it too is how do you keep the culture connected? I think that's the best opportunity leaders have is to become creatives around, and that's why we're paid as leaders is to figure out how do you engage your team in a different way, regardless of the circumstance. So I think things are going to change. I think we need to embrace it, but we also need to embrace other technologies that can get us into the same space without being virtually there.
All right. All right. You mentioned VR on Teams. I was in Thailand visiting a hospital system or a hospital system that's going to be developed. And when I was talking to the CEO, he was telling me how with the development of it, they're going to actually have VR rooms, and so they're actually going to be able to practice. Of course, the workers will have one of the goggles and different things, but as far as the layout of the rooms and everything, so um, in the past we've done different type of simulations, physical simulations and stuff, but that's after buildings were built. But this was in building it and making layout and design changes using VR. So VR is becoming more and more part of our world.
And it's very powerful. I mean, the ability for you to walk through a real estate building, whether it's commercial or residential, and feel that you're walking and touching things is something that you could not do before. And you could do this from across the world. You could be in South Africa and be able to zoom in and look or Teams in and look at that. From a healthcare standpoint, I think the best opportunity, and this is something that we've been missing for a long time, is you have a very small group of specialists, regardless of the body part, right? How do you spread those specialists to meet the population wherever they are? The idea is keep the specialist where they are, whether it's at home, whether it's at a facility, and have people remote into that.
Right.
Have all those clinical tests done off-site, and that doctor can be able, specialist can be able to, consult with you or work with you directly from a virtual world, and that's something that people are getting more excited to because now I have access to a specialist I would have never had access to, or I would have to spend thousands of dollars to travel if my insurance even does cover it. So
So what does that look like? So if I was a patient and I wanted to see a specialist, are you saying that the testing happens locally and then the specialist could be wherever and you just meet with them through
yeah,
VR or
your primary care. So the specialist would or the specialist teams would order the tests that need to be done. You could go to a lab or your primary care's office that if that needs to be done there. And all this data is also stored in an EMR where it's visible to most people, right? So at the end of the day, results can be fed into a specialist. They can look at X-rays. They can look at your blood work and so forth, and be able to now come up with a plan for you. What's interesting too is those specialists can actually perform surgery remotely through robotics.
yes.
So they don't have to be there. They can be in a theater somewhere else performing surgery,
Yes.
And allowing that specialist time to be utilized to the max as opposed to spending time traveling and doing X, Y, and Z. So I think our world is becoming more optimized, whether you take it through technology, software, hardware. And I know some people may fear the aspect of we're losing the human touch, but we went through this journey with smartphones before. We went through this journey with all the technologies. Back in the day, you didn't have a radio in your car. Radios came in the car and it took away the time from a family spending it to listening. We adapted and we evolved from there. And so I just think life is becoming more accessible, and the ability to do different things is becoming more accessible.
Yes. Now, with the accessibility and time savings, do you feel that, and I know this is a pie in the sky or kind of question, but I'll tell you. So you mentioned optimization, And so inside our company, we help companies and different companies optimize. And one thing that they may do is save time, or what we would consider saving time. Now, when they save time, there are different options of what they can do with that time savings or that dollar savings. When you see people, whether it's professionally or socially, using different tools to save time, do you feel that they're getting more enjoyment in life, or what do you view is happening with all this extra time?
I think that question is up for debate, and it depends on the scenario. So if somebody's joy is spending if with their free time is spending more time on social media, just browsing and enjoying other people's life, and that's what brings joy to them, then I think they're benefiting. If somebody's enjoyment is traveling, and this enhancements allow you to be able to spend more time anywhere in the world, then I also think you're benefiting from it. I think the tough part is for you to be able to recognize when you have that free time and how to use that free time. And the tough part around, and this is why KPIs are very important, is for you to be able to measure how much free time you had before using that technology or process or optimizing the process, and how much time did it give you, and then realizing at the end of the day, what did you use that time for? But if you don't keep track of that using whatever KPIs, I mean,
Right.
I look at people even just looking at your screen time on your phone. If you don't keep track of where your time is going, you'll sit back and still say, I'm still busy.
Right.
But you need to be able to understand where you're, where you give, what, where you, who are you going to give credit for the extra time that you got to do a run, a jog, a bike, whatever,
Yes.
a trip, and that's what we all forget in our life is how do we keep track of our time, and how do we even know how much time we're spending doing X, Y, and Z?
Right.
We don't.
Right. Right. And I know there are some apps, the technology part of it, there are some apps that will show you, hey, you've been on this app for this many number of minutes or hours. I've even seen some say you've been on it this much longer today than yesterday, or this much longer this week, or it's usually not shorter than the previous week. But it seems like I think those type of tools actually should be used so people would um, be able to see where they're at, how much they're using, because AI, different things are really good, but and VR, but my concern is that people are going to be so caught up into the technology and so caught up into the virtual reality that that the real reality people are going to start missing out on. I tell some of my relatives, I was like, social media made us antisocial, so instead of calling people, they're like, oh, I text them, or instead of calling, say, oh, here's what's going on in my life, they're like, oh, I posted it on Facebook, and you're like, well,
Yeah, and the reality is, I don't know if this profession exists yet, but a social coach is something that will be needed in the world. And like you say, there are people who dive into video games for hours, and that's what they have a passion in. But is that a balanced life?
all right,
Again, it depends on who you're asking, but we need technology or a coach to be able to tell to be able to help us understand what our strengths and weaknesses are, and then we set up a social contract with ourselves, and that technology can help us say, are we spending X amount of time doing that? Funny enough, you do that for kids, so you set how much screen time you have for kids, but we don't do it for adults.
right, and we need to, because
100%.
100%, because I know even inside our family, we say, all right, at the dinner table, no phones, or my son is even my I don't want to say his age on the internet and stuff, but my son is even saying, how about we have a day where we're not using technology, and so he's even
Oh wow.
so he's requesting that. And so we was like a Saturday or Sunday, cause we were like, it can't be during the school week and work week, but we landed on, we'll choose one Sunday each month, and it'll be just pure family time, no technology for the day.
Now, do you remember the time when phone your phone was cheaper after 7?
Yes.
That was our one social contract with do not call people
Yeah.
until at night. All that's gone, and bandwidth is just open, and now you can you can use it as much. So I agree. If you don't set your limits, you'll find yourself lost in
Yes.
one addiction to another.
Yes. All right. And so I want to go back to the AI part. We were saying that, some people are way ahead, some people right there, some people going to be laggards. Where do you feel you're at inside that? And where do you want to be?
I feel I'm in the middle. I'd love to be way ahead. The challenge that we all face is there is a lot of smart people working and enhancing AI or taking advantage of what's available through AI and whatever open AI sources and building on that. And we find ourselves not even understanding what the catalog of different tools are out there. But it's funny if you think about any aspect of your life, I bet you could go on the internet and find somebody who's built a connection to AI and how it would help you. And that's the scary part is that I feel like we are talking about earlier on, we are so far behind the game that race has started, and
Yes.
we're coming in day two to compete on a 1 day race.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. So I'm going to wind it down,
Yeah.
but as it relates to your experience with the AI, are there any tools that you suggest they use or?
I mean, I just say the best place to ever start is this. I'm not. It's not paid, not sponsored, anything, but ChatGPT.
Yeah.
You start with ChatGPT and just teach yourself the basics of how to query and ask for whatever you're looking for. But there's an art to how you what you ask the tool to do. Start with that, and you'll be surprised. I always tell people, just start with write me a song about myself and having a happy day, and that will get you more excited
All right.
than anything, and then build up on it. So spend a few minutes, a few minutes each day, just asking questions, or look at what you do from a work standpoint, without you know exposing any IP. Play around with what you do from a work standpoint and see are there any connections, and can it actually enhance your ability to do your job faster, smarter, or in any way more creative. And then go from there, step by step. But you will be surprised how much the way we say a computer is our brain. No, computer is actually our storage in our heart. OpenAI is literally the brain that was missing, and it really gets us to. And I say OpenAI as in the founding group that actually not the founding group because that was Google, but the founding group that really brought this into reality. So take advantage of ChatGPT as a simple tool.
Okay. All right. Are there any last words you would like to say to the audience, or you just like want to sign off? Or
No, do not get tired exploring the world, and exploring the world in your own lens, whether it's through language, whether it's through travel, whether it's through the passions you have. Continue exploring, because I think that's what makes us as a human species more powerful. The more we all explore and bring that together, the better off we are as a race. And live life, be happy. That's simple.
all right. So thank you for your words of wisdom,
You're
for
welcome.
your insight, for your stories about your life and your thoughts in the future. And we thank you all for watching the second episode of Beyond Boardrooms. Take care.